shimmering emerald eye, piercing the blue Atlantean sweep, ever looking westward to the great bower of Sol, a beacon, a seductive siren, a rock of time, luscious, verdant, fertile, coursed by the three great waves, Cleona, Ruari, and Toth. Land for poets, land for heroes, a Dagda's cauldron of light, this Banba, this Fola, this Eriu, eternal, many-splendored Ireland.
In this program, we are featuring the spoken word. The power and the beauty of the spoken word has been moving and delighting the human soul since time immemorial. Helping the spoken word with their music is Anya Minogue on harp, Seamus Connolly on fiddle, Rory Makem on guitar and bodhrán. Our cultural heritage keeps nurturing the soul of the nation century after century. The Celtic gods of sun and water set a river flowing of music and of poetry and wisdom past all knowing. The bards and druids drank their fill, the Brehon sons and daughters. The Feely too refreshed their souls with these sweet mystic waters. And time grew old and times grew dark. The river seemed forsaken. A chosen few would now partake where many had partaken, and other races found our forebears' wisdom well worth learning. Their ancient songs and poetry touched hearts forever yearning. Now aeons passed on distant shores, far from the holy mountain, the sons of sons refound the source and built a flowing fountain of music and of poetry and wisdom from those waters, to soothe the parched and weary souls of all our sons and daughters. Thank you very much. Arthur O'Shaughnessy, the poet who lived in the mid-19th century, wrote this wonderful poem in praise of poets and musicians. It's called Ode.
We are the music makers, and we are the dreamers of dreams, wandering by lone sea breakers and sitting by desolate streams. World losers and world forsakers on whom the pale moon gleams. Yet we are the movers and shakers of the world forever, it seems. With wonderful deathless ditties, we build up the world's great cities, and out of a fabulous story, we fashion an empire's glory. One man with a dream at pleasure shall go forth and conquer a crown, and three with a new song's measure can trample an empire down. We in the ages lying in the buried past of the earth built Nineveh with our sighing, and Babel itself with our mirth, and o'erthrew them with prophesying to the old of the new world's worth. For each is a dream that is dying, or one that is coming to birth.
Down Patrick Jail I was bound to fare, on a day I'll remember, faith. When I arrived in the prison square, the people were gathered in hundreds there, and you couldn't hear stir nor breath. And the soldiers were standing grim and tall around a scaffold built fornent the wall, and a man walked out for death. I was brave near the edge of the throng, but I knowed his face again, and I knowed his set, and I knowed his walk, and the sound of his strange up-country talk, where he spoke out brave and plain. And he bowed his head to the swinging rope, and I said, please God, to his dying hope, and amen to his dying prayer, that the wrongs might cease and the rights prevail, for that man they hanged in down Patrick Jail was the man from God knows where. The poets are continually writing about the four seasons. I'm sure you couldn't blame them. Where would you find better material? This is called winter. Winter, a sharp, bitter day. The robin turns plump against the cold. The sun is weak, silver faded from gold. He is late in his coming and short in his stay. Man, beast, bird and air, all purging, all cleansing, all renewing. Earth, purified, awaits the rite of spring. Her bridal gown is virgin snow and frost stars in her hair. A snowdrop by the road today bowed gracefully, and high upon the wing, up on the sparkling nothingness, a lone bird began to sing. Can gentle spring be far away? Thank you. The Giant's Causeway, a spectacular formation of hexagonal limestone columns on the north coast of County Antrim, is called by some one of the wonders of the world. Poet Peter Makem addresses its origin some 60 million years ago. Beyond the restless edges of the tectonic plates, Antrim's form is cast and set. Beyond the fracture lines that woke up Alp and Himalaya, the third, the final lava spill fulfilled all assertions. At a place east of Dunluce, where waters later came to live, its slowing motion settled into the great trot. Year and year after year, cooling in the sun's heat, warm in the cool of the moon. Then, as death sped its drain, a faint subterranean chant sounded in the vast body. Voice on voice entered tone, and the chorus surge and pant quicken as a smithy's hammering broke out to its sky in the final convulsion. 40,000 risen shapes appearing out of the spasm, appearing out of the hollow, cleared at the lifting cloud. They faced toward the ocean like seals crowded on a shore. They faced to the horizon in their hexagonal weight, century by century, into the tide's departure. At the turning ebb, the risen forms of the void standing in their judgment, the risen forms of fire. Thank you. Joseph Campbell, the Belfast poet, died in 1944. He was one of the most prolific and most mystical of poets. His poems and songs are filled with all kinds of magical references, like this eerie little piece called My Fiddle is Singing. My fiddle is singing into the air, the wind is stirring, the moon is fair. A shadow wanders along the road, it stops to listen and drops its load. Dreams for a space upon the moon, then passes, humming my mountain tune. Joseph Campbell writes of his place in the great scheme of things. This is called, I Am the Mountainy Singer. I am the mountainy singer, the voice of the peasant's dream, the cry of the wind on the wooded hill, the leap of the fish in the stream. Quiet and love I sing, the cairn on the mountain crest, the colleen in her lover's arms, the child at its mother's breast. Beauty and peace I sing, the fire on the hearth, the cailleach spinning at her wheel, the plough in the broken earth. Travail and pain I sing, the bride on the childing bed, the dark man labouring at his rhymes, the ewe in the lambing shed. Sorrow and death I sing, the canker come on the corn, the fisher lost in the mountain loch, the cry at the mouth of morn. No other life I sing, for I am sprung off the stalk that broke the hilly land for bread, and built the nest in the rock. Two rocky mountaintops rise up out of the Atlantic, about 8 miles off the southwest tip of County Kerry. They are called the Skelligs. One is a seabird sanctuary, and the other, Skellig Michael, is a 6th century monastic settlement, some 640 stone steps up at the top of the rock. It's one of the most awe-inspiring and mystic places I have ever encountered. Travelling to Skellig Michael by Connie Sanford Jeffrey. Crossing to Skellig Michael in the wild spray and the fury of seabirds, the boat pitches forward in a silvered curtain of time, slowing down, noise falling off to a deeper quiet. And climbing 600 steps, solitude gives way to prayerful keening in the mind. Beehive huts resisting all weathers for centuries, loneliness withstands, and the interior dredges secrets and devotions. Invasions, storms, and marches of time have taken away nothing of substance. The watchful stare of the little puffin follows the boat into the sea once more. Our harpist, Anya Minogue, is going to play a hornpipe for us. Anya? A modern retelling of the old Faustian legend in which a person sells his or her soul to the devil or to fate or to whatever in payment for a favor or a wish granted. In this case, it's referred to as the year. Written by my late friend J.B. Goodenough, this is called The Children of Michael. He farmed the wide fields above the edge of the land. His name was Michael, and he was wise in the ways of water and wise in the ways of the wind. He witched water with the fork of a hazel twig, and he read the lay of the coming seasons from the fur on the underbelly of an alder leaf. The land was rich where the salt marshes met the sea, and above him the white gulls and the grey gulls flew circling and crying. The land bore for him, and the sea bore for him, and he farmed them both. Then came a day in his years when Michael grew lonely in the land. He got himself a wife then from a town on the far side of the hills, and the crying of the birds was not so lonely then. Michael loved her for the whiteness of her hand and for the wind in her hair. He loved her for the softness of her ways. They were easy with each other, and the years passed easy for a time. But when Michael knew that no children would come to him, he grew sad. She was sad then too, and he heard her sometimes singing when she did not know that he was near. Michael walked alone by the edge of the salt marshes then, listening to the gulls high in the air. And after a time, he knew what he would do. The year bent above him and listened to him and agreed. Now in the far town, they did not know him for a hard man, but the bargain he drove on that day was a hard one. Son, said Michael, I would have sons for my youth. The year above him smiled. And daughter, said Michael, daughters for my age. The year smiled. And what will you give to the year? Michael said, what would you want then? And the year said, I will choose one for myself from among them, from among you. And the year was smiling, still knowing which one he would take. Michael went home then, and he kept his silence. And he heard her again, her voice, singing sadly and far away.
Set a wing upon the sky, a silver wing upon the sky. A child will fly home by and by and by.
And the spring came, and in the spring of that year she bore him a son, and she named him for his father, out of love for him. She did not know that above her in childbed the year looked over her and waited. And the child grew, and soon enough ran behind her along the sand, gathering the winkles on the little stones of the sea. Michael watched after them, and he was glad. In the summer of the next year, she bore a daughter, lovely as herself, who danced before her in the fields, gathering with her the flowers that grew there. I hope you may not be coming yet, said Michael, when he was alone, and felt the year moving in the still grass of his fields, like wind that wasn't there. Not yet, said the year. I will come in my time, and you will not know I come. And Michael's wife was happy then. The seasons turned after themselves in their prime. She bore a second son and then a second daughter, and now her singing came to him from orchard and meadow, and her singing had no sadness to it now.
Boat is safe upon the sand, the little bird is safe on land. May the cradle ring on the hand, on the hand.
I hope you may not be coming yet, said Michael, when he was alone, and he heard the year moving in the still branches of his orchard trees, like rain that wasn't there. Not yet, said the year. I will come in my time, and you will not know I come. And in another spring and in another summer, Michael's wife bore her last children. These also she loved, this youngest of her sons and youngest of her daughters. But Michael grew afraid. What do you fear, said the year? You are rich in your children. Are you coming, asked Michael. You've sons for this season, and you have daughters to comfort you in seasons yet to come. Which will you take, asked Michael. Which will I take, asked the year. And Michael saw the year move in the little waves at his feet by the edge of the sea, like a tide that wasn't there. Are you coming now, asked Michael. I will come in my time, and you will not know that I come, said the year. And Michael lingered long by the fire with her that night, with his wife, for there was a storm come down on them from the north, and the fish ran before the water, and the water ran before the wind, and the storm came with its fingers at the windows and with its hands against the door. And oh, Michael feared for his children then, but his wife, she was singing to them.
Ship rides at the harbor light. Every bird is done with flight. Sleep ye safe with me tonight. Tonight.
Michael slept then as if there was a spell upon him. And when he awoke, the rain was done, and the wind was gone. And in that silence, he heard the voice of a child calling his name outside in the night. His wife, she heard it too, and they ran out into the darkness to bring back the child that was lost. You cannot come now, said Michael, for he was afraid of his promise. I will come in my time. You cannot take what is mine. You cannot keep what you have given away. And Michael followed the voice of the child up and down the fields and through the trees. And Michael's wife followed the voice of the child along the edge of the sea. But she found no child. I will come in my time, said the year. But she did not hear. And you will not know I come. Michael heard no more crying then. He returned to his house for a lantern, and he found all his children asleep by the fire, where his wife had comforted them with her singing. Michael, I called you, but you did not know my name. And his wife was still gone, following the voice of a lost child. Michael went out again to look for her, and when he found her in the long dark of the moon, she lay upon the sand, and there was salt in her mouth, and there was salt water in her hair, and her eyes looked up at the sky, but Michael knew that she did not see the sky. Michael, go home to your sons and to your daughters, and let them keep you now. Above her, the white gulls and the grey gulls flew circling and circling and were silent.
Shipwright that a harbor light, every bird is done with flight. Sleep be safe with me tonight.
Cathal Buim wa Gilligunna, the 18th century poet, was walking down a mountain one very hot, dusty, summery day, and he got very thirsty. And he was walking down the mountain. There was a pub sitting on the side of the mountain, and he decided he'd go in and ask for a beer. As he went through the door, he put his hand in his pocket, and he discovered that, like all poets, he had no money. But being the brave man he was, he went in and asked the loan of a glass of beer. And there was a huge big woman behind the bar. She took a leap over the bar, grabbed him by the throat, got him to the door, and threw him across the road. He bumped twice before he fell into the ditch on the far side of the road. And he's lying there, bruised and blue and black, and still dying with a thirst. And he looked over at her, and he was more than angry. He made a poem at her and to her and for her and about her. It's called The Glass of Beer. That lanky hank of a she in the inn over there nearly killed me for asking the loan of a glass of beer. May the devil grip the whey-faced slut by the hair and beat bad manners out of her skin for a year. That parboiled ape with the hardest jaw you would find on virtue's path, and a voice that would rasp the dead, came ranting and raising at me and threw me out of the pub in the back of my head. If I'd asked her master, he'd have given me a cask a day, but she, with the beer at hand, not one Jill would arrange. May she marry a ghost and bear him a kitten, and may the High King of Glory permit her to have the mange.
The songman wandered where high heather hills extended misty arms to embrace the ever-moving sea. Casting his all-consuming music mind on men and maidens on sea and sky, on vale and verdure, on flower and feather, absorbing the tastes and textures of a quiet land, ravaged by wars, haunted by hero hosts, softened by rain winds, lighted by lovers. A garden to grow flowers of fancy. In the solitude of evening he poured forth a rainbow-colored tapestry of images, where dreamers could wander at will, picking many-hued threads of song to soothe world-weary souls. And the singers, children of the birdful west wind, carried the songs to the world's end.
Pegasus is one of the many, many major poems written by Patrick Kavanagh, who was and is considered one of Ireland's leading literary lights in this century. My soul was an old horse offered for sale in 20 fairs. I offered him to the church. The buyers were little men who feared his unusual airs. One said, "Let him remain unbid in the wind and rain and hunger of sin, and we will get him with the winkers thrown in for nothing." The men of state looked at what I brought for sale. One minister, wondering if another horse body would fit the tail that he'd kept for sentiment, the relic of his own soul, said, "I will graze him in lieu of his labour." I lent him for a week or more, and he came back a hurdle of bones, starved, overworked, in despair. I nursed him on the roadside grass to shape him for another fare. I lowered my price. I stood him where the broken-winded spavin stand, and crooked shopkeepers said that he might do a season on the land, but not for high-paid work in towns. He'd do a tinker, possibly. I begged, "Oh, make some offer now. A soul is a poor man's tragedy. He'll draw your dungiest cart," I said, "show you shortcuts to mass, teach weather lore, at night collect bad debts from poor men's grass." And they would not. Where the tinkers quarrel, I went down with my horse, my soul. I cried, "Who will bid me a half a crown?" From their rowdy bargaining not one turned. "Soul," I prayed, "I have hawked you through the world of church and state and meanest trade, but this evening, halt her off, never again will it go on. On the south side of ditches there is grazing of the sun, no more haggling with the world." And as I said these words, he grew wings upon his back. Now I may ride him every land my imagination knew. Peter Makem's Owen Macha honours the site of the kings and queens of Ulster, where they reigned for 700 years. It's 2 miles west of Armagh city, and it is not only the premier site in Irish mythology, it is one of the most important archaeological sites in Western Europe. Owen Macha. I thought of a great shape at Macha's fort, whose eyelids strained to open from the lock of 2 millennia. I watched its heart pulsate, mouth like a seashell move to speak. "We are the first of Ulster, we warriors and holy ones. We are the first of all to raise in gold songs of wars and lovers who stepped into God's prince, taking the God's trail. And burn, burn, and fire, fire, dig no ring to reach us, but wait for us, in voices heard before the listening, in faces that vanish under focus. Wait for us, our scent, our smell in cracked boor tree, water at the dawn well. Thank you very much. Seamus Connolly, our fiddler, is going to give us a slip, jig and a reel. Seamus. Thank you, Seamus. I walked out this morning, the air was sweet and clean. Bushes all along the road were showing tips of green. I leaned against an oak tree to hear if it would sing. Its pulses throbbed and raced like mine to welcome in the spring. There's music in the west wind that's blowing from the sea. There's music in the lamb's bleat, the droning of the bee. There's music in the treetops, the mountain streams all sing. A symphony on earth and air to welcome in the spring. Love is rampant everywhere and all the world is young. Spring's song is a joyful noise and winter's song is sung. Every girl becomes a queen and every man a king. The earth renewed sings gloriously to welcome in the spring. I make watercolors in my head of places I miss. Watercolors are diffuse and gentle, like the way I remember these places. Derry in the late afternoon, ducking into a pub from a squall of rain. A street in Cady whose name I don't remember, but the sunlit, mellow feeling even now is with me. Two cathedrals in Armagh, farmland near Dungannon, Larne Harbour, and the wide blue expanse of the Antrim Coast Road. Small details of each day have left me. So busy then in looking, I didn't realize how deep either the memories or the yearning for these places could be. Could I ever feel the same feelings again of wonder at Gallerus Oratory or Newgrange? Could I find the same friends again, even though then I didn't really know what to say to them? Seldom have I valued anything so much as those April spring weeks slid away, or the grey, green, gold watercolors I imagine in their place. Thank you. Patrick Kavanagh captures completely the delight of a rural Irish Christmas morning, a childhood Christmas. My father played melodeon outside at our gate. There were stars in the morning east, and they danced to his music. Across the wild bog, his melodeon called to Lennons and Callums. As I pulled on my trousers in a hurry, I knew that some strange thing had happened. Outside in the cowhouse, my mother made the music of milking. The light of her stable lamp was a star, and the frost of Bethlehem made it twinkle. A water hen screeched in the bog. Mass-going feet crunched the wafer ice on the potholes. Somebody wistfully twisted the bellows wheel. My child poet picked out the letters on grey stone. In silver, the wonder of a Christmas town land, the winking glitter of a frosty dawn. Cassiopeia was over Cassidy's hanging hill. I looked, and 3 wind bushes rode across the horizon, the 3 wise kings. An old man passing said, "Can't he make it talk?" The melodeon. I hid in the doorway and tightened the belt of my box-pleated coat. I nicked 6 nicks in the doorpost with my penknife's big blade. There was a little one for cutting tobacco, and I was 6 Christmases of age. My father played the melodeon. My mother milked the cows, and I had a prayer like a white rose pinned on the Virgin Mary's blouse.
The great megalithic complex in County Meath is not only regarded as the oldest man-made building in the world, but has the world's greatest collection of megalithic art. The chamber is aligned to the sunrise during the winter solstice. It is 5,300 years old. Brún Boyne.
Where Bowen's river twists and turns and flows, and Brún Boyne lights up the shining hill, in winter's deepest darkness no light glows to warm the earth or ease death's bitter chill. But on the shortest day the sun returns, renewing life and hope in earth and bones. He climbs the Brú's dark passage where he burns, his message carved on rows of standing stones. And here I stand beside the entrance stone, with all the years of darkness nearly done. I feel the voices singing in my bone, the ancient pulsing of the moon and sun. And hidden knowledge by some mystic power has been refound to light man's shining hour.
Deep seas, restless waters, all crossed and crossed again. Strange voyages, strange lands, strange sights and smells and sounds. Salt-soaked ports of call, all different, all intriguing, all scrimshawed on the ivory of memory. Now, the voyaging done, our last course set, a warm west wind sings sweet songs in our sails. Sweet too the roll of the white-foamed grey-green deeps, the welcome sight of albatross and gull. One more day and then, sweeter than all, the sight of home. Thank you. The kingdom of Manannán Mac Lir eternally plays its own sound symphony. This piece is called Sea Music. Cormorant and gannet chorused with the wind song that sang on shingle and sand, and like the sirens, their whisperings lured my soul to a grey-green world of sea music from which there is no return, ever sounding from ripple on shore to thunderous wave timpani, from sigh of wind through wing feathers to cymbal crash of wave on rock, where sad-eyed silken seals crooned their lonely notes to emptiness. And from the world's rim, the gentle whales answered as one, "Come away, come away." Since the beginning of all beginnings, man, enchanted by this mysterious sea music, has turned in wonder to the sea-green deeps, the ever-changing realm of Manannán mac Lir, that awesome sea god, ruler of all the depths and all the waves and all the fishes and fowls therein and thereon, keeper of every water that ebbs or flows, sorcerer of all the sea-bound mysteries that keep his realm from overflowing, though all the rivers since time began flow to his open arms. Music master and enchanter, whose shell horn symphonies fill the heart and mind of all his willing sea sons, and ever the song goes on from sea and sky and shore and schooner, and fair is the fare thereof, and wondrous and awesome and everlasting as the sea music, and even the very sea. You have but to listen. Thank you. A tribute to musicians everywhere. This piece is called Fiddle. In forest green you first must find the special tree where all the songbirds congregate at eventime, row upon row, branch upon branch, many-hued and multi-voiced, sweetening the air, infusing every fibre of leaf and limb, of trunk and bark with music. And when that tree has come to the fullness of time, it must be taken honey-grained to the woodmaster whose craft has spanned all knowledge from where the four earth winds meet. And he, with love greater even than the earthbound knowledge, must cut and fit and form and fashion, must stain and wax and mold, and almost magically hand birth a fiddle. And this most precious gift must be taken and placed in hands that have touched the stars, hands that have stirred the oceans, hands that have sprinkled dew on the mountain, hands touched by Angus that can open the door to the soul, hands to wield a bow dipped in magic and scatter music through every window and every hearthstone of every house, on every road that leads to the world's end. Sweetly may your fiddle sing through 7 times 7 generations, and may your bow never need rosin. Thank you. Twilight. That time of day so loved by the Druids, when it is between times, neither day nor night. Twilight falling slowly along the shoreline quietly. Around the reedy marshy ground, only the mute hypnotic sound of lonely waters lapping disturbs the hush of evening. The brilliant darting dragonfly paints the water soundlessly. In the distance, eerily, a curlew wails out wearily, and homing crows laugh raucously in a far-off rookery. A wind song, soft, melodious, through the reeds and the watercress, whispers tales and mysteries to ears attuned to subtleties. Dream world ever changing in the mystic shimmering of the light and half-light between the day and night. Thank you. And thank you for allowing us to share this feast of words and music with you. On behalf of Anya, Seamus, and Rory, we hope you enjoyed the performance. And until we meet again, I wish you good music.
Roam her highways and byways, trudge her mountain tracks, wander her country lowlands, her boggy paths and heathery bracken. Talk and laugh and sing with young people who are ancient, shaped by teeming millennia of scholar, saint, and sinner, of artist, poet, and warrior, by hands that have carved their story on stone, on bronze, on gold, on hearts, and hidden memory, shaped too by harps that have strewn their songs on the winds of Erin. Dance modern streets with ancient people who are young, who carve their stories still on gold and bronze and stone, who lift the harps again and strew their songs on the winds of the world. Let your souls soar through a land of legend, of mystery, of everlasting beauty. Put on your dancing shoes. We'll dance in Ireland.
live Tommy Makem's